And you know how to use this on and off. That's it. And remind me, I never take it off.
Does red mean it's hot?
Well, welcome everybody to our August meeting. And I'm Ray Rocha. Anyway, before we go, we're live right now, but we'll be live streaming and we will do a podcast that'll go nationally. Actually, a little bit of international. And I'll introduce the guests. But just a few shout outs. Mike Clark is here, County Commission, and he has an event he wants to tell you about. And then we'll have some candidates. Don.
You should be arrested for marrying somebody. I'm not scared.
Ira. She'll have you live.
You want to make an announcement?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks for giving me a couple of moments to talk to the folks. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to steal your chair for a minute.
No,
I've got a couple of things happening. Every other week, every other Sunday at 9 in the morning, I host a bike ride along the Truckee River. Anybody's welcome to ride along with me. I know some people are afraid to go down by the river by themselves because of homeless issues, but we get a group of us, we ride along. It's a casual ride. It's not the Tour de France. We're not racing, and anybody's welcome. So that's happening on Sundays, every other Sunday. Next Sunday, it'll happen again. And then I'm hosting lunches with the seniors at all the senior centers throughout the county. And I've got some flyers here with the date. So everybody's invited to join us there as well. And I got to tell you, the seniors' lunches are only $2. So better deal than Ray's. Had to get that shot into Ray. All right. So I don't know. You want an update on what's taking place at the county, or?
Well, I'm going to introduce it.
Okay.
Real briefly.
Sure. Just, I'm focused on the seniors, trying to do everything I can for our seniors. If you ever go to the senior center over on 9th Street near the county complex, it's really turned into an annex for the homeless camp. Okay. The poor seniors are there, and they're looking for a place to get away from the CARES campus during the day. So they take their shopping carts and go to the county's facility. But the place hasn't been updated in years. I've been after the county to freshen it up. I'm not talking about a major remodel. I'm talking about some paint, some carpet, spruce it up, make it more inviting for the seniors. Also, a lot of seniors live in their cars. Cars don't have showers, cars don't have laundromats. So I'm trying to urge the county to put in showers at the senior center so folks can get clean, and some laundry facilities there so folks could do their laundry. And so I'd appreciate any help if you have any influence with any county commissioners to help me get that done. Again, the seniors, and I'll wrap this up and just show you some numbers of comparisons. The county spends, I can't get the exact number, but we've got probably anywhere, it depends on who you talk to, $130 to $180 million tied up in funds for the homeless. We've got about a $17 million annual budget for the CARES campus once they've spent that money. We've got $7 million spent on seniors. Seniors represent about 20% of the county. Fastest growing segment of our population is seniors. So we're spending $17 million annually, plus God knows whatever they put in the CARES campus, over $100 million. And seniors get $7 million a year. And just to put that in the perspective so you understand the numbers, we're spending $14 million on animal control. Okay, so I'm pushing for seniors. I'm pushing for this to let's balance these numbers out. Let's make this a little more responsive to our seniors. They played by the rules their whole lives. They paid their taxes. Most of them are still paying taxes, and they don't get a lot of services. On fixed incomes, price of medicine, price of fuel, interest rates, cost of everything's going up. And these folks need some help, and I'm taking that task on to try and help the folks. So thank you. And if you have any influence with anybody, please help me get that done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next, I'll introduce a couple of candidates running for county commission. Tracy Hilton Thomas is running in 4, right? You want to say anything? It's on. I didn't sit.
Hi, I'm Tracy Hilton Thomas, running for County Commissioner District 4. I'm a homegrown girl, raised in Fallon and moved to Sparks in 1976, graduated from middle school at Dilworth and high school at Reed and UNR and Truckee Meadows Community College. I was an employee of Washoe County for 17 years in the Technology Services Department. So I had an insight into all of the departments within the county and the operations. And then I've also worked 20 years with the elections department in our elections. And then I've also served on the grand jury, and I also served in the naturalization ceremonies as a field registrar, which is an experience I would recommend to everybody to go to at least one of those ceremonies once. It's very moving to hear the testimonies of these migrants that are so proud to be a citizen of our country. And I am running for commissioner because I feel that our elections need to be more transparent and to be more accountable in what we're doing. That I just think we need to make sure that Washoe County is at least meeting the NRS statutes that we have, the current laws, and there's some things that are not being held or not being completed. Just one example is NRS statute 293.363, which states that counting is to continue without adjournment until complete. That did not happen. That has not been happening for quite a while. There's also some statutes in there that say that we are not supposed to be releasing election data, and they do that daily during early voting when they release how many voters have checked in, and then they define it as far as which parties have, how many of each party have voted that day. That's influencing our voters and coercion as far as how they vote, and maybe even suppressing some of our voters because they get depressed and distracted. So anyway, and then I'm also really on board with Mike and expanding our senior services. And then also I'm my husband's retired sheriff deputy, and I have the kids are one is a deputy, current deputy. I have daughters that are dispatchers for both Reno and Washoe County, and I have a nephew that's a sergeant in City of Sparks Police Department. So we have very interesting holidays, to say the least. So I am running against Clara Andriola. She's the current appointed commissioner. And then Tom Green has also announced that he's running for the district as well. And have you been in touch with Robert Beals? No
questions.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, my website is tracyforwashoe.com. I have been working with Commissioner Herman on some election resolutions as far as establishing an election citizen advisory board, as well as an integrity resolution. Again, just trying to get the committee, the commissioners to commit to upholding NRS statutes that are currently in place. So if you have any questions, please go out to my website. I've posted those resolutions out there, and I've posted a couple of other articles and other information as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. The next candidate is Tom Green, running for the same District 4, which is basically Sparks.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Green, and I am also a candidate for the commissioner spot in District 4. Just a quick history. Ray told me I couldn't talk too long, so I'll be fast. I grew up also in Reno, in Sparks in Reno. We moved here in 1978. I lived in East Sparks over by Reed High School, and then we lived in Hidden Valley, and then we lived in Spanish Springs since 1992. So I've been a resident of District 4 since 1978 in its current form. So I know the issues. I worked at the sheriff's office for 26 years. I made my way up through the ranks. I was a detective, and eventually I retired as a chief deputy overseeing the Detention Bureau and the Special Operations Bureau. So I have I also have a law enforcement background, of course, and I bring a unique perspective to, I think, to the county, not only because of my boots on the ground time, but the time that I was an administrator of the largest budget in the sheriff's office, which was detention. It's a big moving ship that's got a lot of parts. So I'm familiar with county management. I worked with them frequently, and to say that I'm disappointed in county management is an understatement. I am not endorsed by any of the former commissioners. In fact, I wear that as a badge of honor that Von Hartung doesn't endorse me and doesn't care for me. That's fine by me, because I'm looking to make positive changes out here. If you're sick of quality of life issues, if you're sick of the shiny object being the homeless shelter and homeless services, if traffic is an issue, if uncontrolled growth is an issue, all these quality of life issues are important to you, then I'm going to be your guy. So I don't want to take too much time, but my website is also up and running. It's tomgreen4washoe.com. And if anybody's out in Spanish Springs or has a desire to come out to Spanish Springs, we're having a little fundraiser get together at Fiesta Mexicana at Wingfield Hills and Vista right there by the Rayleighs. So that'll be on Monday from 4 to 7 if anybody wants to pop by and grab some tacos and hear what Tom has to say. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Can you hear me? We'll officially go on at noon. We are live right now, but we'll do the podcast and the international and national thing at noon. The way it'll work is Bill and Eddie, which I'll introduce, will do the interview on the two of them, and I'll introduce everybody. The first half hour is going to be the podcast. Then we'll go to Q&A. And as a courtesy to everybody, so that everybody has a chance to ask them questions, just ask questions. Don't go on and on, please, so everybody has a chance. With that in mind, Bill, you tell me. You ready?
We start, yeah. One thing's nice about
Let me go ahead.
That's one thing that's nice about live streaming and technology. We don't have to work on the radio right now. We are live streaming on YouTube and some other platforms. And we'll do a podcast, which will be episode 317. A lot of people have been interviewed in the state of Nevada.
I want to introduce people right now. The interviewers are Eddie Floyd of America Matters Media, and the radio station's downstairs. And he's on 5 days a week. And that's 1060 AM, 93.7 FM. Bill Conrad, that's with RedMove, and it so happens he is running for Senate.
Yeah, today, though, we're not talking about my run for Senate. It's all about RedMove.
Right. Anyway, I thought I'd throw that in.
I don't even care.
Anyway, without further ado, we have two very special guests, at least one of them.
Talk bad about my wife.
Senator Ira Hansen and Assemblywoman Alexis Hansen. And with that, Bill and Eddie, take it away. I'm going to go.
So I'll lead off. This is RedMove, episode 317. We are at the Town Mall in Reno, Nevada. I'm with Eddie Floyd from America Matters, and we're going to interview for the next 25 minutes Alexa Hansen and Ira Hansen, Assemblywoman Alexa Hansen and Senator Ira Hansen. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it's like being married together, find your background, what we think about the states, and we'll both be asking you some questions. Eddie?
Yeah, let me take it over now. I'll start ladies first, okay? Just familiarize yourself with the audience here today. Where were you born, educated, and what made you lose your mind and marry Ira?
And run for office.
Thank you, Eddie, and thank you, Bill. Thanks to the Sierra Republicans and RedMove for this opportunity. So, Assemblywoman Alexis Hansen, my family's been in Nevada for 5 generations. I was a Lloyd, I still am, but my maiden name was Alexis Lloyd. Our family settled in Lincoln County, Pioche, Nevada, came from the coal mines of Wales to the silver mines and mining in general in Lincoln County. My dad was the DA of Eureka County and Esmeralda County for over 40 years. I lived for a time in Tonopah and Goldfield, but mainly my whole life I've spent in Sparks, which I really do call home. Went to Sparks High School, majored in journalism at UNR, but then got a little distracted by somebody over here. And we met in high school, and it was quite the scandal. I was a senior, he was the junior class president. We've been involved in politics clear back then.
Wow.
We married in 1980, just celebrated our 43rd wedding anniversary. We started a small plumbing company that's still thankfully in existence here in Sparks, and some of you are our customers, and we greatly appreciate your support. It's been an honor to be a representative of Nevada, but probably the greatest honor that we have are to be parents of 8 children, 23 grandchildren with a 24th on the way in December. And they're the light of our lives and very accomplished in their own right. So they bring us an immense amount of pride. And thankfully, they support us. And when they live in the right district, they vote for us. So that says something, right?
That is the district.
So I think I about covered it. Been involved in politics forever.
Right.
I encouraged Ira to run in 2010. I felt it was really necessary. I'm certainly his first critic, but I'm also his biggest fan. I think he brings a ton to the legislative process. I didn't really have this in my wheelhouse as per se or on my map to run for office, but I'd always been involved in campaigns, walked for numerous candidates, been involved in the school board issues with 8 children since the 1980s and have seen an awful lot go on. When Ira approached me about running, and I laughed at first, I then thought, why wouldn't I? I've been around it. I love my state. And so humbly, I tossed my hat in the ring and was elected in 2018. I've served 3 regular terms. I've served 5 special sessions.
Wow.
So that right there tells you that something's broken in Nevada. So I serve on judiciary, education, and natural resources, and was part of the unfortunate mapping redistricting special session and was appointed to a committee for that, which was a debacle. So I've chatted enough. I'll turn the time back.
You did
Thank you.
great. Come to you now, Ira.
Well, as a typical politician, she didn't answer the question.
Yeah, she did. I
No,
loved
she said,
it. I
why
loved
did you? Because I lied a lot. That's why. She's still waiting for the oil money to come in.
That's it. That's it.
No, our backgrounds are similar. I grew up in Sparks. My family would be 3 generations. Actually, it would go back to be basically Mormon converts in Denmark in the 1800s, moved to Utah. My grandfather came from broken home and moved to Sparks in 1925, was a boilermaker there. And we've been in Sparks ever since.
Wow.
And we met in high school. One thing she didn't say that the men in the audience especially would appreciate, she was the homecoming queen. Right?
All right.
And I was a junior and she was a senior, and it was some of a scandal. It still is. Everybody laughs because I'm not physically the most dynamic guy. And I'm a beautiful homecoming queen. You think have like a big 6'2" football star or something, but she ended up marrying me. But obviously we hit it off pretty well. 8 kids, 23 grandkids. The ratios are kind of interesting too. We got 15 grandsons, but at the moment only 8 granddaughters. But we have the 9th one is in the oven now, and is a granddaughter. So anyway, that's the background. Politically, I've been active my whole life. My dad actually was extremely active when I was a kid. Actually ran for governor in 1970.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been involved in politics my whole life. He did not run, and he was not a Republican back then. In fact, he is. It's a problem to this day, but he started the Independent American Party, which is still a viable party in Nevada. Unfortunately, it harms the Republican Party substantially.
Right.
So when I turned 18, I registered as a Republican, been a Republican ever since. Was very active politically in different ways because obviously we had a large family as well as running a plumbing business.
My first political involvement actually used to be writing letters to the editor. And then an opportunity came to write a column for the Sparks Tribune, which I ended up doing for 17 years. And then an opportunity to do talk radio. I did talk radio on KOH and KKFT, total of about 7 years. First time I ran for office was Assembly District 32 in 1992. I got beat in the primary. Actually, looking back, thank goodness, it was kind of premature. Then I got involved again in 2010, ran for Assembly 32 successfully. Served 4 legislative sessions there. Don Gustafson retired. I stepped in and ran in that seat, and now I've served 3 sessions as a senator. So I've served 14 years now in the legislature.
Wow.
So,
Let me be the first one to say that when you took over for Don Gustafson, I didn't think anybody would be able to fill those shoes, and you certainly have. Let's give a big round of applause to the family.
thank you.
So I have the first question for Alexis.
Alexis, yeah.
Alexis, excuse me. The county is Elko, Eureka, Humboldt, Lander, Pershing, and part of Washoe. If I'm a tourist, I'm coming to Northern Nevada in your district, what should I see in your district? What are the sites?
That's a good question. Oh, no. Can you hear me?
No.
No, push until it turns red. Not use mine. Not working? Here.
That'll work.
Here you go.
So anyway,
That's a great question, and it is, I should have told you a little bit about the district, so thank you for pointing that out. It's 33,000 square miles, so goes from, this was part of that gerrymandering, goes from part of Verdi, cuts Somerset in half to give the Republicans, more to me, make me more red and go clear to Elko so that they could take away Heidi Gansert's advantage in that Senate seat and get rid of Republican stronghold in Assembly District 25. What should you see? Well, absolutely, you should see Pyramid Lake. It's close. It's easy to get to. People don't expect to see Pyramid Lake when they're out there in the dry, arid desert. I'm a fan of Basque food. You need to eat at the Martin Hotel in Winnemucca, but also you got to hit the Star and do a comparison in Elko. Cowboy poetry, for those who are interested in that in Elko County. That's a really big draw. You can lock your love in Lovelock, Nevada. But of course, you probably need to make sure you hit the Sparks Museum, home of the railroaders, and get in touch with our Sparks history. So really proud of our district, and it's very diverse. That's why I serve on natural resources. I have urban issues, but I have very important rural issues. And you could probably guess what the #1 issue is. It starts with a W, and it's for fighting over, and whiskey's for drinking. So it's water.
so I'll follow up with a water question. What are the issues with water in Northern Nevada, and what are we doing about it?
Okay, first of all, we don't have 3 days to go over this, but something I learned early on, and probably one of the most overwhelming aspects of running for this office, was the water issues. And we are the most arid state in the union, and our district covers, we have the bottom of almost every water basin in Nevada until redistricting. We used to have Walker Lake. But the water issues start, the water comes out of the Rubies, you get the Humboldt, comes down, and then we have Lovelock, which is the bottom of the water basin. Some of them, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but in Nevada, it's first in time, first in right. That's our water law. It's been here forever. And so if you have a water right, it's by seniority. And some of our most senior water right holders are in Lovelock, but they're at the bottom of the water basin. So that upward usage for groundwater, for our surface water, we call it conjunctive use. That's been a real issue, and we're still navigating, and unfortunately ends up in lawsuits a lot of the time. So I depend, as a legislator, since we do deal with water law, I thoroughly depend on the wonderful resources that are the Central Nevada Regional Water Authority. That's 9 counties. And those are the people on the ground. And that's what I've learned as a legislator is I'm a vehicle, and those who have the know-how are in the trenches, and that's who I listen to. I don't pretend that I know all these things, and they're a wealth of information.
Wow, good, very good. I'm going to ask you, Ira, right now. Number one, I've already told you should be arrested for marrying somebody so young, but bottom line is, you know, it's, if I were to come to your house for dinner, do the two of you ever get into debates over a particular bill? And if so, don't invite me to that dinner, okay?
The answer is no. The way you stay married for 43 years is you just say yes a lot.
Exactly.
Yes, dear. Yes, dear. Actually, we have had a few debates on issues. Generally, I think our voting record's very, very close. But yeah, there are some times where we, like, hey, I'm saying I'm not supporting that. Well, you should support it. No, I'm not going to support it. But obviously, since we're married, it's a very unusual relationship in the sense that you can all right now pull up my voting record and compare it to Alexis's voting record. No. Actually, she beat me one. They have an American Conservative Union. I beat you one session out of three. I won one. We're still very, very close on that. So actually, we get along great. Look, one of the reasons I like I said, you always joke about me getting a beautiful woman, senior when I was a junior, to marry me. I'm fairly persuasive. So when it comes to specific votes, I can often persuade her and vice versa. But our voting records are so close, and I can't think of any significant issue where we will be different. Now, one thing you have to be careful of too, a bill that she votes on in the Assembly may be modified by the time it gets to the Senate. And even though on paper it looks similar, there are amendments and things that have occurred. And so she may support a bill that I end up opposing. Classic example of that was a bill that passed unanimously in the Assembly, came to our House, and the Senate decided the Democrats in the Senate kind of snuck in an amendment. What had happened was in Douglas County, the school board there had basically made it illegal for biological males to participate in biological female sports or go in their locker rooms and so forth. Well, I exposed that on the Senate floor, but that amendment was, Democrats voted for that amendment and put it on the bill, and it did pass the state Senate on a party line vote. So if you were to pull that bill up now, you would see that she voted for biological males to be in female sports. Now, she didn't, though. She voted it, and it was switched. So you got to be careful, on some of that kind of stuff.
Right.
That bill did die. Douglas County did the right thing, frankly. But that's an example of how sometimes you can look at bills and go, why would I vote for that? And Alexis voted against it or vice versa. But you'll find that our records are very close. And one of the reasons I encouraged her to run was because I wanted to have a reliable, solid conservative that I could count on. Because one thing, man, when you're in the legislature, there are immense pressures brought on people. And I've had people sign the no new tax pledge, and then you've got giant casino people putting heat on you, billionaire owners of football teams, things like that coming and having massive lobbying efforts. And here you are trying to stand up for your principles, but man, you're getting pushed and tugged by people that are highly persuasive or they've given substantial monies to the party. And issues like that can come up. And I've seen people buckle when they shouldn't. Right. And so one of the reasons I wanted to get my wife in there is because I know I can count on her. She's a solid conservative, and she's got lots of common sense, in spite of marrying me. And and she's been a great representative for people that believe in Republican values.
Right. And done a great job, both of you have. Matter of fact, I'll pay you a compliment that I heard direct out of his mouth, and that was Senator Don Gustafson, who I think we all miss. He said, nobody could fill my seat better than Ira Hansen.
Good.
And
that's
that
a
was
very,
one heck
very
of a
high honor.
compliment.
Thank you.
So Ira, District 14, which counties are in District 14?
It's the same. We have the same. The only difference.
How does that work out? Because I thought they were split like two.
Well, no, the way Nevada works, there's 21 senators and 42 assembly people.
Correct.
So essentially I have two assembly districts in my Senate district. So essentially I have all the same 33,000 miles Alexis mentioned that she represents, plus I have a section of Northern Sparks, which is currently represented mainly by Skip Daly.
So double the population, basically.
Yeah, it does.
And that's why
I
Sparks
represent
has
roughly 150,000. She would represent roughly 75,000.
Wow.
So,
Any issues on campaigning for the election commission when you're both together? How does that work? The regulations.
Oh, like
and
mixing
rules.
campaign funds.
Yeah.
I
Go mix.
we
when you're
have
driving together.
completely separate accounts yeah, if we go to an event and we stay in a motel, what we typically will do is we'll put it on her credit card account or, her campaign credit card, or I'll put it on mine. And that way we always kind of split it up. I guess, if they wanted to, if some really sharp attorney wanted to try to make us miserable, they could come and say, wait, no, how come it's on your card when it was actually her event, or something like that. But no, we don't have any significant problems with that.
Well, I have a question for both of you, if you don't mind, and that is, we seem to be in a contest with California as to who can produce the dumbest children in school. And right now, I'm upset about that particular problem. I think education is critical. And one of the things that I'm a real proponent of, and I want your take on it, I'd like to see more trade schools pop up. And instead of, when I grew up, you had to go to college. And right now, I have a degree in journalism, and I don't even think that exists anymore. I think it's now opinionism, okay? But what do you think about trade schools, both of you? And we'll start ladies first.
Thank you for that. This education is probably one of the biggest soapboxes for me, and I have a lot of criticism when it comes to education. But on a positive note, at least when it comes to the trade schools, fortunately, and thanks to Senator Maurice Washington that's sitting back here, we are big fans of, and he's a campaign manager for us. Maurice was the lead in Nevada getting charter schools. That happened under his watch and with a lot of hard work in the 90s. So the charter school movement is really starting to get support even from the Democrats. And so we're seeing, I think they see the writing on the wall, and they are public schools. Charter schools are public schools, but they tend to perform better because they have more autonomy. So one of the best charter trade schools is ACE Charter High School here in Reno, right by the airport. Does phenomenal work. These kids get a regular diploma and they get on track to get a diesel mechanic when they graduate, or go on to engineering with a draftsman certificate. So if you've never been to see ACE Charter, they'd love to give tours. As beaten down as we feel in education at times, there are these pockets of beautiful things that are happening at some of these charter schools, and all the more reason we really push whatever charter support that we can get there. So huge proponent of that.
Good.
Really quick, if you don't mind, then I'll turn it back over to Ira on that. One thing that I have consistently asked for some accountability on is, as I've studied the numbers for years, but particularly as an elected official, there is this disparity in Nevada on average, and I did these numbers, they're on the Nevada report card, which is Nevada Department of Education website, open to everybody to go to. You can research individual schools, districts, and see what their stats are in proficiency. So I did the pre-COVID numbers because I knew they would use COVID as an excuse for numbers being low. So I did up to COVID, the average proficiency rate for English language arts, meaning reading, writing, 47% in Nevada, if you graduate from a Nevada high school. In Clark County, it's even worse. But then if on average for math, and this is for high school, for math, 26%. But our graduation rates on average are hovering upper 80 percentile, 90%. So I've asked consistently in hearings, and I've never gotten a decent answer. Why do we have this kind of a graduation rate when our proficiency rates are abysmal?
Right.
There's a disconnect. Fortunately, in the interim, in this session, I was able to get part of a bill where they're going to do a study in the interim to satisfy that. They're going to find out and try to answer my question. So hopefully we're going to see this before the next session, and then maybe a bill to address some of that disparity that we're seeing. So it's a consistent problem. We have great inflation and our proficiencies are ridiculous. Anyway, let's have some.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, Alexis has been all over that. She served all three sessions on the education committee, hon?
3 and interim.
Right. I served 2 on education too, so we both have had a bit of a background in that. What's interesting is your question is really about school choice. Okay.
Right.
And what's happening is what we're literally witnessing as we speak in Clark County is the collapse of the public school system down there. It's not quite as bad here, but it's getting there. What's happened is you're just getting a terrible education in those inner city schools. And the kids and the parents, rightfully so, are trying to get into charter schools. The charter schools are a huge threat to the teachers union. And while, Alexis, here's where we're going to disagree. The Democrats are not supportive. There were individual members of the Democratic legislature who were supportive. But overall, let me give you the worst thing I've seen as far as education in Nevada happened this session. Charter schools are outperforming the regular public schools substantially. There's actually waiting lists to get into charter schools all across Nevada.
Right.
Almost every single charter school in Nevada is maxed out in registration. People are desperately trying to get in there. You would think, since they are public school teachers that teach in the charter schools, that they would be rewarded for doing an excellent job and actually meeting the needs of the students. Right. Instead, the Nevada legislature gave $8,000 plus pay raises to every single public school teacher except the charter school teachers.
Whoa.
All the charter school teachers have the same pay. The other ones got, I think it ended up being like a 14% pay raise. The charter school teachers were deliberately snubbed by the Democratic majorities to please the teachers union. So, and what they're trying to do, and think about it, if you're a teacher and you're going to get basically an extra $8,000 if you get out of the charter schools and go back into the regular public schools, which are dominated by the teachers union, the temptation is very strong to do that. A lot of the teachers that are in the charter schools have gone there because of the flexibility and the ability to actually teach without all of the bureaucracy that the regular public school teachers have to deal with. And consequently, they're trying to punish them for their success levels and refuse to give them the pay raise. And this was not, some mistake. This was deliberate, open, we brought up on the floor, party line votes on that things. The other thing they did to them, charter schools, if you go to a charter school, typically the buildings themselves compared to a regular public school, substantially different. They're using some old rundown building and trying to keep it going, and they have maintenance issues and stuff like that. So we had an opportunity to give them $35 million for their infrastructure, try to fix the schools.
Great.
Guess who killed it? The Democrats.
Oh,
They punished the very successful public. Remember, this isn't parochial schools or something. These are public schools with public school kids in them. But because they're not part of the teachers union, they deliberately attacked the one successful, bright, shining star in the Nevada public school system. Because Nevada, the entire time I've been in the legislature, bounces along at like 49th, 50th in the nation. Our public schools are terrible, frankly, and it's not because of a lack of funding. We've been dumping money into it like you can't believe. There are other substantial issues involved that really, in some cases, have nothing to do with schools. And to put it bluntly, it's the collapse of the family. And so many of these young men in particular who cause so many problems in these schools don't have a dad.
Wow.
You and I mouthed off and caused problems. My dad, I had respect for my teachers. And I did not mouth off to my teachers or principals or anything. I was taught to, they are the authority. Some kids don't have that. And unfortunately, we work so hard to protect those kids that the other kids in the classroom get cheated out of a good opportunity to get educated. Anyway, sorry about that.
Great answer.
I've got to follow up on that. I just saw some polling yesterday. I was talking to some people about 3 issues. One, and it's huge, it's way in the favor of any politician that goes for it. And the first one, it has to do with education. It's over 82 to 84% of people in Nevada believe that boys should not go in girls' bathrooms. It pulls really hard. It's a winning issue. How could you not lose that? The second thing is on not just charter schools, but the money following the children and school voucher pulls in the 70%. Among families, it pulls in the 80%. That's a winning issue. So how can we not win that issue and talk about that issue and drive it down that the Democrats are holding back our children? What do you do to fight that? These are things we have to do in this state if we want to recover. And then finally, fiscal responsibility. A majority of people agree that you should be fiscally responsible in the state, not go into debt, and do the basics. So, those are winning issues.
They absolutely are. And what the problem is and this is what I hear consistently from you guys, our constituency, is why aren't you guys doing more? Well, the reason is because the Democratic National Committee is in charge of the agenda in Nevada, and the leadership of the Democrats in charge in Nevada control all of it. So we can get up there and give floor speeches. We can make the best arguments. You guys can come and testify. But unfortunately, that chairman of that committee has the say-so over whether this bill passes or whether opportunity scholarships gets funded. And these underprivileged children that are like 400% below, the median wage in the state can't get funding, and yet they say they're all about the kids. They're not about the kids, or they wouldn't punish charter schools.
Amen.
They would say, we want to do whatever it takes, and education looks differently for different children. And so the unfortunate reality lesson here is elections have consequences, but maps have consequences. And unless people, when we come to these things, everybody's frustrated. Like, what do we do? What do we do? If we don't get a referendum to have the public vote on taking the map redistricting away from the legislative partisanship and to an independent commission to do it, Nevada will still, we are a third, and a third. A third independent, a third Republican, a third Democrat. We had a Republican governor elected, a Republican lieutenant governor, but I'm in a super minority because, and Republicans showed up. And why? Because they have made those maps in November of 2021 in a special session to reflect that they would put me in a super minority, and they achieved it. And they made the plan so that in 2025 in the Senate, we will lose Heidi Gansert and Carrie Buck's seat. Wow. So, and Heidi Gansert just announced she's not running. Now, I know some people are not a fan of Gansert, but that district is a difficult district. It is purple, and now it is +6 Democrat on the Senate side and 2.5 on the Assembly side. It was always a Republican district. This is Bill Raggio's district. This is Sharon Engel's district. They have stolen that district that only had 1% deviation in population. And so what they did is that part of the district that butts up to a rural area, mine and Ira's, they carved and made, we were already double-digit Republican. They know they're not going to get a deep red district. They just give it away. So they'll say, well, we'll make Hanson's even redder so we can get more D's out in 25 and 15, those districts. Wow. And then they did the same thing down in Southern Nevada. They gave more to Greg Hafen, who's a good, solid Republican, double-digit, carved out part of Las Vegas. So they jeopardized Heidi Kasama's seat, who's a Republican. They've jeopardized Andy Matthews' former seat that's held by a Democrat now. So that's the answer. These issues are popular, but the Democrats control the district, right, and the narrative that is run down their throats by the DNC.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Ira.
The question is really, okay, how come we have these winning issues, but we aren't able to capitalize on them? It's very interesting to watch how that all plays out, because what really boils down to is the Democratic Party, as Alexis mentioned, is controlled nationally, okay? The old days when you had a Joe Dini type Democrat who was a Nevadan, and he and Raggio may have different views as to how certain things would be done, but Joe Dini loved Nevada, okay? The new way those people aren't there anymore, right? And what you discover is that where are they getting their marching orders? Well, they're getting it from the Democratic National Committee, which, as everybody here knows, is extremely left-wing. I mean, they're Marxists. They don't even pretend not to be anymore. Right. Black Lives Matter, Antifa, all that. That's the type of people that are calling the shots in Nevada now. Now, just a simple example I gave of charter schools not getting funded, you would think that would be a huge issue among the Democrats, but what happens is all those unions kind of group together, and their attitude is this. Okay, teachers union, we think you guys probably gave the Republicans a little bit of a political advantage by not funding the charter schools, but overall, we'd rather have Democrats in than Republicans. So we're all going to support the team They fully fund their candidates. The Democrats, unlike us, and this is to their credit, because of their unions, the unions have political actions dollars. Everyone in the union, out of every paycheck, gives a certain percentage that goes into their political action fund. Those political dollars never, ever go to a Republican candidate, ever.
No.
So what they do, and then they mobilize. They're very, very good, especially in the South with the culinary union, of getting out the vote. So what happens is this. I give you an example. My brother-in-law works in a big casino in Southern Nevada. Election comes around, early voting. They came to him, the union guys. Hey, Mike, we see you haven't voted. So how the hell do you know that? So, we're watching that stuff. He said, look, we got a bus out there. We got a lunch for you. We want you to vote. So yeah, you're not going to like how I vote. That's okay. We just need you to vote. They get out 100% of their union to vote. And not only that, when Mike got on the bus, they have a pre-marked recommended ballot. And guess who's not on any of the X's there? Us.
Right.
Okay. So when you start adding that kind of stuff up, even though you may have a substantial number of Hispanics, for example, who have kids in charter schools, or we're getting opportunity scholarships, and you would anticipate that they would vote for us down the road and make that a winning issue. In fact, it doesn't, because they say, look, overall, yeah, okay, maybe the charter schools should have got some more money. But if you vote for those Republicans, you're going to have the radical people there that are racist and want to kick you back to, wherever you came from, and scare them. So then they vote Democratic. Anyway, so it sounds good, but it's a lot harder to overcome than you would think. And a lot of it boils down to money and organization.
Well, we're out of time for the formal podcast. We're going to go to question and answer from our guests here today. But what do you say? One last thing you want to say and tell people? Maybe how to get a hold of you?
Basically, I wanted to add to what you said, Alexis, on the trade schools, okay? My oldest grandson, I only have 11 grandchildren, so I have like 1/10 of what you have, okay? And then I immediately bought a color TV, and that put an end to everything. Now, bottom line is, my oldest grandson called me up and said, Grandpa, I'm going to go to trade school. I want to be an airplane mechanic. He never became an airplane mechanic, but now Elon Musk sends him all over the nation to repair robots. My second oldest grandson was a 4th grade teacher at Spanish Springs. And my oldest grandson said, turn in your application and let me see what I can do for you here, okay, at Tesla. And he's now making, instead of teaching 4th grade, which he always wanted to do, and I've never known a teacher that didn't reach in their pocket to help pay for supplies, which he did too. But now he's making, because he has a family too, he's making 4 times what he made as a teacher. That's why I say we need more trade schools. And I want to thank you both for the great job you both are doing.
Tell the audience how they can reach you, your websites, things of that nature.
Sure. You can find me at alexishansonnv.com, or you can go to irahanson.com. It's that simple.
Very good. Well, thank you. And we'll open it up, Ray, to the audience. We'll turn it back to you. And
No, if you want to ask questions, use one of the mics. You got to push the thing. Or
actually, if they could come up behind you and just
yeah,
sit there
you can
and
come
then
up here
take your
behind
time.
me and ask questions.
You'll be on
Oh, I
the
knew Brooke
cameras.
would. I knew
We
you
could
would.
actually move too. You can go either side.
Yeah,
You can sit here either side, just alternate.
we'll alternate.
Well, this has been a great discussion. My name is Brooke Westlake. I'm running for the Washoe County School Board, District A. I've been a part of, thank you. I've been a part of this community a long time, like you guys. Moved here when I was little. So I have a couple questions, actually. Do your children, 8 children, that's amazing. I'm a mom of 2, I can't imagine, like seriously. Do they have political aspirations is my first question. Number 2, how many of the 23 grandchildren are in the school district, or are they in charter schools and whatnot? And you, Ira, you brought up a very good point about the mobilization of power and numbers. The Democrats are very good about mobilizing, and they're very patient. How do we move the Republican Party so that we can work together? Even if we're running against each other as candidates, we have to work together and we have to mobilize. So those are the 3 questions I have for both of you.
Thank you for that, and good luck. And thank you for running for school board. That is like the hardest job on the planet. So of our 8 children, I'm happy to report they do tend to share our same political ideologies. And they were raised here in the Reno-Sparks area. I homeschooled, I public schooled, and I private schooled. I did it all. And that's what was really important to me, to have those choices. And then with the grandchildren, we have the oldest is student body president of Bishop Manoke High School. So we have 2 of our oldest granddaughters are in a private school. And then a bunch of our grandkids are at Doral, which is a charter school. And then we have some that are at Roy Gom, which is a public school, but one of the best performing. And that's the thing. There are opportunities to find some good, solid public schools. And Roy Gom is one of the highest performing in the state. We had a bill for open enrollment, which I'm a huge advocate of. That means that you're not stuck to your zip code. It failed, but they're trying, but Washoe County, I think, Washoe County is past that, which is great. That means if your child or grandchild, a different school other than their zip code, we called it variances back in the day. Well, now if the school's not overcrowded, you can go to that school. So you do have open enrollment to the degree that it's not overcrowded. So in a nutshell, we have private, public, and homeschooled. The majority of our grandchildren are still not quite in school, but those that are, the majority are in charter and private, and then a few in public. So.
Okay, follow up a little bit on that. All 8 of our kids have graduated from college. My oldest son is 40. He has 5 sons. My oldest daughter graduated. She's got her master's in psychology. She has 5 girls. So now in their time in life is not.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
You got to hit both.
I'm sorry. This is super important because I've been trying to draft one of my children to run for that Assembly District 25 seat. That was Jill Tolles. That's the one that's a concern. But our daughter, who has the 5 kids, a marriage and family therapist, it's not the right time in life. Her youngest is in 1st grade. So they want to get their children. Do our children have political aspirations? Absolutely. Our oldest son, Daniel, is the one I think to keep an eye out for, and Rachel Hawk. But Daniel Hansen in particular, he's a doctor, 5 boys. Lives in Assembly District 26. He was going to be a political science major. He was student body president, wanted to be a political science major, go to law school, but then had to change part and became a doctor. So he's always had his pulse and been involved at the legislature in Washington, D.C. on medical issues, but also here at the Nevada legislature. So our children are very interested. I could see some of the younger ones. One of our sons is a Navy SEAL. We'll just go down the list here. So the oldest is a doctor. Second one is marriage family therapist. Our son Jacob is a very successful entrepreneur, has a vacation rental business all over multiple states. Our 4th is Sarah. She's a nurse, lactation consultant, labor and delivery. Our 5th is Ian. He's a fiscal analyst for a big tech company and still maintains his conservatism in California. Our 6th is Forrest. He's a Navy SEAL, went to the Naval Academy. And then 7th is Mallory. She's a nurse, labor and delivery at Carson Tahoe, just delivered twins herself. And our 8th is Larissa. She's a nurse, works oncology at Renown. Now she's at the cancer care specialist and loves taking care of cancer patients and do what they're first. So thank you and for the indulgence.
Do you have anything to say, Ira?
Yeah, Ira, that's why I know I just shut up and let her answer the question. Notice she cut the senator off, just like, I got to answer that one. Off goes my button. So that we laugh because honestly, we're very proud of our kids, obviously, and they are unusually successful in a lot of ways. But the question she did ask, this is an important one for us. How do we mobilize? Okay. First, what Bill was talking about, get a good ballot question out there that draws us in. If you remember in 2014, we had the ballot question to vote down the margins tax. Republicans, we became the majority in the Assembly, in the Senate, and all constitutional offices because that ballot question got all the Republicans out to vote. That's one way. And there are several issues that they're working on to do that. The second one, and this is a little more difficult, the Democrats focus on the grassroots through the unions. The unions actually pay precinct captains, okay? Each precinct, you guys are all in precincts, and for the most part, we don't have much interaction in a precinct. They do. And what they do is not only do they have a precinct captain, but that captain is paid. Okay, it doesn't make a lot, I'm sure, but the unions have that political action fund. And if you're going to spend a fair amount of time trying to do that stuff, it's only reasonable, if possible, that you get compensated. Republicans don't do that. What Republicans typically do is we get the big dollar guys like Sheldon Adelson or somebody with some major dollars. And then if you're going to run for United States Senate or even down at the state Senate levels, you hire these high dollar consultants who help put your campaigns together. And basically we focus on the top end, where the Democrats focus their money on the bottom end. They don't need the giant campaign people because they recognize that if they get their base out to vote, most people look, even among us, if you were to ask the average Republican, hey, who's president of the United States? Oh, Biden, of course. Then who are your 2 United States senators? They go, gee, it was Harry Reid. Who's your congressman? By the time you get down to state Senate, I don't know. Who's my school? I have no idea. The reason I bring that up is how do people determine how they vote? Well, on those big personality races like Trump versus Biden, that's a real simple one. But when you get down to other races, an average voter doesn't spend a lot of time researching who is Ira Hansen, who is Alexis Hansen, who is Skip Daly. They go, I'm a Democrat, I'm going to vote for a Democrat. I'm a Republican, I'm going to check the R's, R. And that's why those registration numbers matter so much when it comes down to the lower races, because there may be in my Senate district out of 150,000 people, there may be 500 to 1,000 people that could right away go, oh, Ira Hansen's my state senator. Out of 150,000, maybe 1,500 could name me. Okay, how do they determine how to vote? And that's what the Democrats have been very smart in. They focus on the bottom end. We focus on the top end. You get 1 million mailers in your mailbox, and all the big consultant guys are helping draft those and everything. Where the Democrats hire a precinct captain, and that precinct captain now watches the voting registration lists. In fact, the candidate Thomas mentioned this. Remember, it's 2 weeks or whatever it is before the final vote, and every day they post how many people have voted. And the Democrats watch those very carefully. And let's say I'm a Democrat and they see Ira Hansen hasn't voted and it's 5 days before the election or the last day of early voting. The precinct captain will contact me. Say, hey, Ira, hey, man, how's it going? I represent the 14th precinct and you and I are good Democrats. And, I noticed you haven't voted. Is there anything we can do to help you? You need a ride? Can we come get it for you? You mark your ballot and we'll take it and deliver it for you. Well, they do. I mean, my point is to answer your question. This is where the Republicans need to work on the grassroots side of it. Okay, we spend all our money on big consultants. Them spend it on precinct captains, and that makes a big difference because the actual issues, especially with the growth in the Hispanic community, Hispanics overall, with the exception of the immigration issue, are like us. They like family. They're committed Catholics. They're hard workers. They love the fact that they have opportunity in America to become entrepreneurs. And they are entering that middle class level as we speak. And I've talked to several of them. I'm good friends actually with several of the Democratic Hispanic guys in the legislature. And I said, hey man, you guys are Republicans, and it really comes down to the illegal immigration issue. They see that as a racist thing on our part. And honestly, in Nevada, we've lost that issue, okay? So my thinking is at this point, we need to focus on, like all good families, I don't care what nationality, ethnicity, whatever, you want what's best for your children. The education issue that Bill brought up is huge. The economy is always a big issue. There are some issues where we could focus on and pick up a substantial block of those voters. Already about 1/3 of the Hispanics in Nevada have registered Republican. Because that entrepreneurial, they like the business side of us. They like our family structure. There's a pretty strong pro-life movement among the Hispanics through the Catholic community. So there are elements that we can attract, but the main thing is we got to get them out to vote. And that's where a precinct captain, a paid precinct captain, would be a very wise investment for the Republican Party to think about. Yeah. Instead of paying $500,000 for these giant brilliant consultants, but they don't get out the voters. So.
Go ahead, Diane.
Thanks. I was actually thinking along what you're saying. I don't think your average Democrat understands that the Democrats didn't fund the charter schools, that they stopped the opportunity scholarship for half of the students. And I would guess when the poor mother goes up there and they say, well, your kid doesn't have a scholarship anymore, they're not told, well, that's because the Democrats wouldn't and fought the governor. They're going to say, oh, well, they just got rid of it. And then they're mad at the whole world. And so I think part of it maybe is on all of us to get that word out there and educate people. I mean, if you read what the RGJ says about those opportunity scholarships, it's all real convoluted. And now finally the governor's found a way, but they just badmouth, what is it, AAA that covered the gap or whatever. And how many people just don't know that? And you know what I was thinking is, geez, if I found out about meetings like this where the Democrats speaking, maybe just to show up there and at the end of it say, gee, I see your voting record voted not to give a raise to the charter school teachers, and ask that question, because probably 90% of the room would have no idea. So maybe the statistics you gave about how much better the charter schools do, letters to the editor of the newspaper, because I didn't know that it was, I knew it was skewed. I didn't know it was that skewed. Anyway, that was my only comment.
Who else has questions? Go ahead.
Yes.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Linda Park, and I came in with you. Just very good. The question I have for you is probably best directed at Alexis, but Ira, you might have some institutional knowledge so jump in there. Yes, thank you. The question is an institutional knowledge question. I was told that in Nevada, that the rules for education, almost all of the rules for education come from the legislature. They cannot make independent decisions themselves. Is that true?
Well, it might be, we have a little bit different understanding. Actually, the state legislature, what's in statute is that every child in Nevada is guaranteed a public education. That is a state mandate. There's no way around that. And that's more of a declarative. But actually, no, the way the structure of the hierarchy is we have the Nevada Department of Education, and the legislature is responsible for the standard, meaning you need this many credits to graduate in these subjects. But we don't tell school districts what those subjects are. So I know this had come up. Do we have a state CRT mandate? We don't. And if we did, I would fight it. And because historically that's not to say that the state might try to co-opt more power and authority over individual school districts, but from the experience I've had in the legislature and my years of being involved in the local school board issues, the state is like the umbrella of standards, of credits, and even sometimes subject matters. Like we changed it from civics or from government to civics, and then we added multiculturalism, and we added financial literacy. So they might add subject matter, but they don't dictate the actual curriculum. That's a school board measure. Maybe there's some more specifics that you want to ask about.
Well, I am concerned about the standards because we're graduating students who are functionally illiterate. And we're about 70% of our children are functionally illiterate. And I'm very concerned about who is going to take responsibility for it, because I thought it was the state legislature. And I realize that we're dominated by Democrats, and they don't care about the legislation necessary to improve the quality of children's lives. And I get that. I don't know why, unless it's a political move, and one can only read a number of books to realize that maybe this is the ulterior motive that they have been designed to create. And the control of the Democrat Party is It's another issue. But the advisor now to the Clintons, the Clinton advisor is now supporting Nevada's election. This man now has a program on a major news network. He is well thought of in Republican circles. He has completely done a 180. He did not like what he saw with the Clintons. And so consequently, he's running the election for the senator, the United States senator in the state of Nevada. My question to you is, what's it going to take for us to flip this state? I've been here long enough that I know what it was like in 1965 when I got married here. And I recognize what's going on in the state, and it is a travesty. We have gone from a red state to a purple state. By some estimates, maybe if they can, we're going to be a blue state. So I, for one, say no over my dead body, because I'm not going to take it anymore.
Well, and answer to your question, what do we as the Republican Party have to do to remain viable and actually switch things around? A couple of things. The biggest thing is, when I was elected in 2010, I got to do a tour of the Clark County school system. We went to like 8 different schools. At that time, Clark County, the children in the Clark County schools, remember this is 13 years ago now, it was 70% minority, okay? Almost all Hispanic kids. Now, 13 years, that means all those kids were in kindergarten have now gotten out of the public schools and are now voters. We need to recognize that we got to come up with a way to attract Hispanic voters into the Republican Party. And the best way to do it is actually what you are talking about. Hispanics, just like everybody else, wants what's best for their children. And as the word circulates that the Nevada public school system is horrible, and it's the Democratic Party that keeps propping it up and denying, including to all the Hispanics, school choice opportunities where their kids can get out of these messes that they're in, that is, in my mind, the catalyst that can bridge that gap. And again, the other thing we can do is get our own base out. Remember, because of the whole voter fraud issue, a lot of Republicans didn't vote. Because like, why? You know, it's a bad thing. And whether that's true or not, you got to get out and vote. You know, we have a Republican governor right now that lost in Washoe County and in Clark County. He barely got over the top because of, frankly, the rural parts of the state that we represent. He went handily there. Adam Laxalt lost in the state of Nevada by 8,000 votes. Yeah. Okay. If that means if 10% more of the Republican voters in Elko County alone would have turned out, Adam Laxalt would currently be our United States Senator, okay? So those little numbers matter because most elections come down to 1 point, okay? 1 or 2 points is all. So if you can get your own base out, energize your own base for having either a dynamic candidate or a very important ballot question like we had back in 2014, things like that, then work on the school choice issue for the Hispanic people in particular who love their children just as much as everybody else and want what's best for them. And they know that the public school systems, especially in Clark County, are really, really terrible. That's why they're leaving. That's why the parochial school system is taken off, why homeschooling is taken off, while all school choice opportunities that are possible are being used right now. That's, in my mind, our ticket to getting back into a majority. The second thing is once we're in the majority, we have to do Republican things. The reason in 2015, after we had 78% of the people of Nevada vote hell no on the margins tax, the Republican Party controlled Senate, Assembly, and governor passed a margins tax. So a lot of Republicans understandably go, screw you, you guys just stabbed us in the back like you can't believe. And guess what? I was in the majority for one session of my life, and the very next session, I was crushed. They didn't want us anymore because we came to groups like you and said, we're going to stand up and we're going to block that margins tax. It was the Republicans that did the tax, not the Democrats. So once you are elected, you've got to actually show your constituents and your party that you mean to do what you promised you would do. And we failed miserably, and that's still a repercussion in the election cycle to this day. People will bring that up to this day. I'm sorry, didn't mean to get off on tangent, but hope I answered your question.
I have a question. You brought up something that's very valid. Democrats work at the lower level, but they pay somebody for precinct, and that's what works. The problem is here, and I've heard it for 10 to 15 years. Oh, we got precinct captains. It doesn't work because they're all volunteers, and maybe 2 or 3 precincts will work. I've heard it over building a precinct, which is hogwash. If we don't get people doing precinct work, we're screwed.
Well, the Republican Party typically represents an entrepreneurial class of people, okay? You guys all have businesses, or you work, or you do something where you're already very productive with your time. You're not sitting at home watching the boob tube all the time. You are busy. So for us to ask you as volunteers to then go out and do what's often an uncomfortable job. You know, when I ran for office, knocking on doors, I hated knocking on doors, just, hi, I'm Ira Hansen, I'm running for state assembly, remember one lady came out and she goes, "You're interrupting Jeopardy." Now as a precinct captain, you'd have something similar to that. It can be uncomfortable. So if you pay somebody, it becomes a job. You're an entrepreneur. Great. I'm going to work for 2 weeks for the Republican Party, and they're going to pay me $350. And every night I got to commit 1 hour of time to talking to the 85 Republicans. And there's got to be a coordination. So you got a list showing, hey, you have out of 85 people in your precinct that are registered Republican, 65 of them have not yet voted. And it's, tomorrow's the last day of early voting. And so we want to make sure we get any people we can out there. That's what you're getting at. And that's where I think, when you see that amount of dollars that are spent on campaigns, it blows your mind. Okay. I mean, we're talking tens of millions of dollars. I'd love to see how much Adam Laxalt and Masto spent in total on that race. The dollars would be out there. There aren't, you may have 1,000 precincts in Nevada. You could hire precinct captains, pay them $500 or whatever, and it would be 1/10 of the money they spend on these high-dollar consultants. And that's where the Dems are smart. They focus on the local folks. Republicans focus on getting 1 billion mailers in your mailbox and inundating you with that. So anyway, that's an area we got to work on.
And they throw them away.
Well, look,
a lot of them. The problem with the Republicans is that, again, we don't get to the heart of the thing. Like if you say immigration, you're not against illegals, you're against border.
Open border. No, I understand. I don't want anybody thinking that I'm suddenly for open borders. Where the Democrats are also very good is they demonize their opponents. Okay. It's not that I'm in favor of, you can have legal immigration. We need immigration. Right now, every bit, I went to McDonald's this morning for breakfast. They didn't have anybody working hardly. The line was clear out in the street. I talked to them at the window. We're having a hard time getting workers. Go to any business in town and you'll see help wanted signs. There's a huge demand for labor, especially the lower cost labor, and that could be supplied by that. But what they do is they say, oh, Ira Hansen hates Hispanics, and his motive is racism, not following the rule of law. And they successfully pound that down. Every Republican, everybody in this room, by the way, you just put the fact you're a Republican. I don't care if you're black like Maurice Washington. Maurice Washington is a racist. Why? By definition, he's a Republican. I'm dead serious. And they paint that, and they use that constantly. And like I said, the average voter isn't really into politics. All they know is Ira Hansen is a racist because he's a Republican. I can't vote for a racist.
It used to be that Goebbels for Hitler, if you say it often enough, people will believe it. And that's what they're very good at.
And I'm sorry, it has worked. It has worked. If you were to ask the average person, non-white person in the United States, is Donald Trump a racist? The answer is going to be, I think so. Oh, I know so. And that's from that constant Goebbels, the big lie theory. Pound it, pound it, pound it. and constantly stir the pot and demonize your opponent. Make us out to be horrible human beings that, oh, these people, they'd go back to slavery if they could. I mean, they're terrible. I'm sorry.
I think
go ahead.
Don Folsom had a question.
Alexis,
I just have one thing I wanted to follow up with Ms. Parks, and thank you for those really thoughtful questions. On the education front and the idea of the state having more authority, just to let you know, though, how abysmal the stats are. So 60% of, on average, 60% of a child that graduates from a Nevada public high school needs, if they're going on to college, needs remediation. I'm sorry, 50%, and it's 60% in Clark County. 30% of Millennium Scholarship recipients need remediation in college. Like, you're graduating from college, but more than half those kids, and guess who bears the brunt of that? The community college level, because they're in charge of remediation. The university doesn't do that. So again, this is just all this money, all this time. These kids have been in school for how long? And to your point, is it on purpose? Like, nothing better than to dumb down the electorate, correct? So that you breed sheep instead of those who think for themselves, instead of those who are taught to think critically. And so it is a huge problem, but on one last positive note to end on, because I give you the ugly, but let me give you a little flicker of hope. I will give credit to a Democrat freshman legislator, Assemblywoman Mosca, had one of my favorite bills in education, and I signed on to it. She is a real innovator. She sees what's going on, and she came from an underprivileged immigrant family, and she gets it. And she got through the, right now, there's like 4 diplomas you get in high school here, 4 different types. Well, one of them being an honors diploma. But the default setting when you go into high school is, maybe my kids did this, I'm going to track for an honors diploma. You opt into that, right? Well, she passed the career and college ready diploma, which already exists, but you have to opt into it. It's a higher standard. It's like, wow, maybe we'll take 3 and 4 years of math. Maybe we'll take 4 years of science. Maybe we'll take. So it's a higher standard diploma, and the default setting is you are already opted in. So starting in, I think, 25, students that go into high school will already be on the track for a career and college ready diploma, which is a high standard. After their freshman year, if with their parents or the counselor they're struggling, they can assess and maybe opt out, but we're not going to opt into mediocrity anymore. That's not what we're doing. So I want to give a shout out to Assemblywoman Mosca for that.
I hate to cut everybody off, but we always say we're going to stop at 1 o'clock. But that doesn't mean you can't sit and talk to them. Don had questions, and anybody wants to stay.
Don,
You're
go ahead and
wel-
ask it now.
I'm going to ask you a really difficult question. Does anybody know exactly how many U.S. senatorial candidates we have at 1:01 today? All right, I have a self-interest.
I want to thank everybody
Wait a
for
minute,
coming.
that wasn't all, right? I have a
Hurry up.
self-interest in asking that because I am the not-so-pretty proxy for Stephanie Phillips for U.S. Senate. And what's going on out there in the media and all else is we have got about 7 or 9 candidates. I can't keep track. What the media and everybody else is doing is they're counting who's got the money and calling them the rating. That's bullshit. And
Watch the language.
let's work on fixing it.
I want to thank everybody. The next meeting, we're going to go back to the first Thursday of each month instead of the
We
third.
got some cussing in before the meeting.
And there's a good shot, there's a good 80% chance we're going to have Vivek Ramswazi as a speaker at one of these meetings. Thank you. Hey. She's worth Portuguese night and she takes over.
Hey, we just want to make an announcement. We have some extra sandwiches back here. If you guys want to grab a sandwich, we're just going to let them go for $5. So you can take them. We still have turkey, ham, tuna, veggie. So if you want an extra sandwich, we're selling them for $5.
I was going to ask something and I got better at it. No, I did, and then I thought, you know what? I was going to add another. But are you sure? Because that's what I wanted. A lot of people. Yeah, because I think in the abstract, people don't understand and see. They can like, how does that happen? I mean, it's right here at Creekside. And what are you able to get at that?